Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday and the Friday before a long weekend. Particularly sweet, hey? Just got to get through a few more hours and then we are free for the weekend. Um, Big plans? Big plans? I don't know. Arena? No wild and crazy. You're not gonna be jumping out of any airplanes or anything? No. No.
That'd be cool.
um, Chen, you got any plans?
Just sleeping. But
Sleep.
a long time.
Long sleep?
Long sleep.
Long sleep in. I think I'm gonna do that tomorrow too.
Really good.
Long sleep in. Yeah. Cleo? No plans? All quiet? Okay. Well, I guess it's gonna be a nice quiet weekend, but that's okay. What's the weather supposed to be like? Just like this, or anyone know? Anyone know? Let's see. See what we're in for here. See what the magical flashing box says.
It's snowing. It's snowing on Monday.
Oh yeah. Oh, tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow's raining. Yeah, and then Sunday looks not bad though.
Yeah, but it's snowing.
And let's face it, most of us are gonna sleep in late tomorrow anyway, right? Yeah. Okay, let's jump in to what we were talking about yesterday. So we were talking about how sexism kind of appears and is kind of continued or perpetuated through films, right? And we said yesterday that sometimes sexism and other types of kind of stereotypes as well, but sometimes they're perpetuated just by stock characters, right? And so in any movie, maybe not so much television show, but in any movie we watch, we really don't have time to get to know every character intimately, right? And so in the example of Mean Girls, we get to know Katie really well, we get to know Regina and maybe some of the other plastics very well. We don't have a lot of time for Damien, right? We don't have a lot of time for Shane Ullman, the guy who Regina was with after Aaron Samuels, the football guy. Yeah, we don't have a lot of time for those characters, right? And so often what movies will do is kind of flatten them, right? They'll make them very kind of simple and easy to understand. And in doing so, they'll often use stereotypical ideas to do it, right? And so Damien is kind of a very simple, flat character, and he's the gay best friend, right? And we see the gay best friend in lots of Hollywood movies, right? He shows up over and over again. He's very gay. He's the friend. He's usually there for kind of comic relief, right? He tells jokes and is funny. And Damien's funny too in Mean Girls, right? A little bit. Even just a little. Yeah, he's funny, and that's kind of his job, right? Shane Ullman, who is kind of Regina's boyfriend after, we don't have a lot of time to get to know him, and so he's just kind of flattened, right? He's a jock. He's a football jock, right? And when he gets crowned Spring Fling King, that's a lot of rhymes. When he gets crowned Spring Fling King, he's like, yeah, oh, he's typical like macho masculine football dude, right? And again, we don't have time for him, and so he's a simple stereotypical character. And again, in movie storytelling, that works. You don't have time to spend on every single character, but it does perpetuate stereotypes, right? It does perpetuate the jock stereotype. It does perpetuate the gay best friend stereotype, right? Karen, one of the plastics, she's kind of a more major character, but she's kind of a flat character too. She's kind of the dumb blonde, right? Which isn't so popular as it used to be in the past, but she's a kind of a stereotypical kind of character as well, right? So sometimes when movies don't have time to spend on characters, they rely on stereotypes, and in doing so, they perpetuate those ideas, and we absorb them, right? Because we're watching the movie and we're just entertained, right? But we are learning these messages anyway, right? We're being socialized, just like Katie with Regina. We're being socialized whether we like it or not, right? We're absorbing these messages whether we want to or not. We also talked about plot lines, right, that can perpetuate sexism. And so we said there's lots and lots of romantic comedies out there. They're fun, they're cute. I like watching them too. As I say, I just watched one on the weekend called I Want You Back. I think it's on Amazon Prime. It's pretty good, actually. Pretty good. It's not as good as, what's the one? Oh, shoot. You know where the two like personal assistants set up their bosses? They try and get their bosses together so that their lives will be easier. What's that one called? Is it called Set It Up? Yeah. Set It Up was pretty good, I think. Do you think so? Was it okay? Did you like it? Yeah, me too. I Want You Back is not quite as good as that, but it's pretty good. Yeah, there's lots of them out there. We like them, right? They're fun to watch. But they often have kind of this fairy tale plot structure where, you know, a young woman kind of falls in love, and it's a very touching story. But often kind of the undercurrent of that is that she starts out her life in a really good place, but everyone is kind of telling her that she's wrong, right? Everyone is telling her that, you know, oh, you're missing something, your life is missing something. Why don't you just put yourself out there, right? And good morning. And then the friends and the guy that she eventually meets, everyone kind of works hard to convince her that he's the guy for her. And of course, that's usually how the movie works out. In fact, the friends and the guy are right, and she was wrong, right? She was wrong about her whole life. And again, you don't have to believe me on this, but it's very interesting how her perspective is a fancy word. It's delegitimized, right? It's made not legitimate. It's made not correct, right? Even though she knows her own life, right? She knows who she is. She's happy, but everyone's telling her, no, you're not happy, right? You think everything's good, but it's not. You think your life is complete, but it isn't. You think you don't really want to date someone right now, but you do. Right? And so all of these messages are telling her that she doesn't really, she doesn't really know what she's talking about with her own life, right? And I think in real life we have to kind of trust people, right? People hopefully know what's best for their own life, but she's always made to be wrong, even in her own movie, right? And again, I pointed out the fact that, are there any movies like this with men, right? Are there any movies where men are, having a great life, having a good time, enjoying their lives, everything's going well, and their guy friends are like, dude, you can't keep doing this. You've got to find your woman, right? You've got to find your girl. There's no movies like that, right? There's no where the guy's friends are trying to push him to find the one, right? No, that's just not how it goes, right? Because women are expected and encouraged to find the one guy that will complete their lives, right? Whereas what are men encouraged to do? To meet? Yeah, but like meet one woman? No? Right, yeah. Guys are encouraged to sort of get out there and be a player, right? To hook up with lots of different women, right? And lots of our film heroes are like this. James Bond. How many James Bond movies are there? 27 or something ridiculous? There's a lot of them. There's a ton. And in every one of them, part of his coolness, morning Crazio, part of James Bond's kind of coolness is the fact that he's successful with a lot of women, right? Usually two or three per movie, I think, is his average, right? And that's congratulated, right? The audience is kind of high-fiving James Bond for being so good with women, right? But women are receiving different kinds of messages, right? The other thing, yeah, that's that. The other thing we talked about yesterday was the Bechdel test. And again, it's not a formal test. It's kind of a funny, silly thing that came out of a comic book. But people started to say, hey, I wonder how movies hold up if we apply this criteria to them. And again, it was 2 female characters with names, right? They have to be real characters, not just people in the background. They have to talk to each other. They have to talk to each other about something other than the man, right? And we guessed yesterday, and I think most of us were in the 40 to 50% range, which seemed quite low, and I was kind of sad that we guessed that low. But you're not wrong. You can go to the website if you want, bechdeltest.com. There's probably more now, but at the time there was over 6,000 movies there, classified, whether or not they passed the test. And yeah, as of April 2015, 58% of the films, only 58% pass all of these criteria, right? 10% fail 1, 22% fail 2, and 10% fail all 3, right? So that's, what is that, 42%? 42% of films do not have 2 female characters talking to each other about something other than the guy. I don't know. I think that's kind of shocking. I think it's very shocking. Considering, how many things could women talk about in movies? It's endless, right? They could talk about different aspects of their lives. They could talk about their family, their work. They could talk about philosophy or science or Harry Potter or the dinosaurs that are chasing them or UFOs or whatever, space travel. They could be talking about all kinds of different things in films, but they're reduced to talking really only about one thing, us guys, right? And, Irina and Anna and Cleo, I think if you were here, you might have informed me yesterday that apparently girls talk about other things other than guys. Is that true? Shocking. I'm blown away. My mind is just... No, it's not. But it's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous to say that, oh, really? You talk about other things? But the movies are saying exactly that, right? They're saying that women don't talk about that other stuff. Right? Yeah. If you looked at I know this is an old statistic, I need to update it. But if you looked at the 2009 Academy Award Best Picture nominees, only half of them actually passed that test. This is Best Picture. That's the big, like at the Oscars, that's the big statue, right? Best Picture. And half of them don't have women who talk to each other about non-man things. Bizarre, right? 2013, the top films of 2013, half of them didn't pass. And here, this is what I was mentioning yesterday, writer Charles Stross says that half the films that do pass only pass because women are talking about marriage or babies. So they're not talking about the guy, but they're talking about still that very narrow topic, right? And again, we said that it's also interesting to note that most of the directors and writers of films are in fact men, right? And so men are telling stories about men for men. And yes, women are involved, right? There's films with women, but lots of them really reduce women to a very narrow role, right? They're the object the object of desire, right? The thing the guy is chasing after, or their mothers, right? Or it's kind of it, right? They don't have a lot of role to play, or at least so it seems, right? Right. So yesterday we were talking about misogyny, and we said that misogyny was specifically the prejudice against women, right? We give it a particular name. So if you're anti-Semitic, you have a prejudice against Jewish people, as Adolf Hitler did, for instance, history people. But here we're talking about a prejudice against women. We're talking about misogyny. And I pointed out here that there's actually quite a bit of it in The Big Bang Theory and in movies and television in general. And in a show like this, it gets played for laughs, right? It's supposed to be funny. But is it? Is the question, okay? So yesterday we kind of started watching the video, and I think, is it okay if we just kind of start the video again? Would that be easier? I know we watched a few minutes of it yesterday, but I thought we were going to get through it, and then we didn't get through it. So is it okay if we just start it fresh this morning? And okay, so we'll watch this video again. And again, I want you to pay attention to online people. The link is in the live chat there. I want you to pay attention to what are we learning about men and women from this show, okay? What kinds of social messages are being communicated, okay? And the second part is, how is this funny, okay? Because you would think misogyny is not funny, right? Is anti-Semitism funny? Prejudice against Jewish people? It is definitely not funny, right? And so neither is misogyny. Misogyny is not funny either, but here, somehow they seem to have made it funny. They seem to somehow get away with using misogyny as humor. And so I want you to pay attention to, why are we laughing? Okay? How is it that the writers are able to kind of get away with using misogyny in a funny way? Cool? Cool? Okay. So let's watch this. Again, we'll start from the beginning. I apologize for not making it through yesterday. That was bad planning on my part, but sometimes it's hard to know, right? Like, I don't rehearse this the night before, so it kind of goes how it goes. So online people, watch the video, pay attention to these two things, and we'll be back after to talk about it, okay? what I would like to do is take 4 minutes and talk to each other about these two questions, okay? What kind of messages did we see about men and women, and how do they manage to get away with this? How do they manage to make misogyny funny, okay? If you want to talk in a group of 3 and a group of 4, that probably works, but whatever you want. 4 minutes, go for it. Talk about these two questions. So you can see each other.
Yeah, we're in the question.
Nobody wants to talk to each other, Hank. Do you want to talk to me?
Yeah.
What's that?
There's no question.
Oh, shoot. Oh, I know what happened. Yeah, because this overlays it. So if I go like this, okay. Sorry. Okay, I'll give you a few more minutes. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, I think we're just about out of time here, so let's start with the first one. What do we hear about men and women? What kind of social messages do we receive? Cleo, what did you say, or what did you think? Say again. Okay, so yeah, so we're definitely seeing lots of kind of nerdy behavior here, right? What else are we? So I guess we're seeing a little bit of what that nerdy sort of persona is like, right? And what nerds are interested in, right? Science and fantasy and comic books and things like that, right? What else, Chen? What kind of messages are we getting? Might be a tougher question than I thought, but it's okay.
Nerds are an interesting person.
Sure.
Even though we thought it's uncool, not really that good.
Okay.
They have quite a lot of fantasy inside there.
Sure. But what we're more interested in here is how let's say how these male nerds are interacting with the women in their lives. Yeah. What do you think? David, what do you think?
They laugh at their appearance, like beauty
For sure, right? So their fashion sense is kind of not great, right? We know that. But again, their interactions with the women in their lives is what I kind of care about. Marina, what do you think?
Usually people don't act like this.
Uh-huh.
Nerds, they do, so maybe it's fine.
Okay, so okay, well, what do you mean they don't act like this? So define.
It's funny.
Right. So there's a couple of instances of women kind of being spied on, right? We've got Howard searching for the America's Next Top Model house, right? And he uses spy satellites from NORAD to help him find it, right? And then he shows up at the house, right? He's in his coveralls. He's like, we're here to fix the cable. He's not there to fix the cable, right? So he's stalking them, is he not? Yeah, he's stalking them. But somehow it's funny, right? So yeah, we see some of these guys stalking women, right? Bosco, what did you see? Okay, so we're definitely seeing the women seem not attracted to these nerdy characters, right? That's true. But what's the response of these guys? How do they respond to that? The fact that women don't seem to kind of be attracted to them or respond to them. Well, how do these guys behave? It's weird. Yeah, they are weird for sure. They are. Anna, what do you think?
They keep trying, like they don't take no for an answer.
Right. That's kind of an interesting thing too, right? So Howard, for instance, is always hitting on Penny, the blonde girl, right? And she's just not interested in him. Not from day one. Never, 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 right? But he keeps kind of going, right? He doesn't take no for an answer. And I guess neither does Leonard, right? Leonard finally, I think he winds up with Penny. I think they get together. But one of the guys says, "Oh, how did you kind of get a woman like her? And he's like, oh, I just wore her down, you know, like a river carves a canyon, right? So he kind of didn't take no for an answer either, right? He kind of just kept going until she was finally like, ugh, all right. Which doesn't sound like much of a love story, but still, you're right. They don't really take no for an answer, right? They don't pay attention to what women are saying to them. Crazy, what do you think?
It's just like for the TV show, it shows some nothing like some sexual joke.
Yeah.
If there is real life, it would become really effective because there's the show which is spoken by some nerdy guys.
Yeah.
So it will make them not that effective.
Right. So, so your point is some of the things that are said and some of the jokes are they're funny in the.
Will become not that effective, or especially big for some nerdy guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and certainly you can kind of do things in television that you can't do in real life too, right? We know the difference between fantasy and reality, right? And we can, we can allow some things to happen in a fantasy world that would be different in real life, right? For sure. Yeah, there were lots of sexist jokes though, right? There was comments about women who are menstruating or their kind of symptoms while they're menstruating. There was Sheldon's joke about women are like an egg salad sandwich on a hot Texas day or something like that. And yeah, like these are all kind of offensive, sexist jokes, right? But again, they get laughed at. I think partly because they're not reality, right? It's a fantasy world here. But what else is happening? Why else are we laughing at some of these sexist, even misogynist messages? Why are we laughing? Or why is the audience laughing? You don't have to laugh, but why is the audience laughing? There's kind of two things.
Maybe the response of the woman in the movie.
Okay, give me a little more there.
Like they want to the joke of those guys.
Yeah. So the women's response in the show is they kind of don't seem to make a big deal out of it. Right. That's not what I was thinking of, but that's actually an important point, right? Is that these guys make sexist jokes, or they say sexist things, or they act creepy, or they stalk women. But the women in the show are kind of written not to have a big reaction to this, right? They just kind of like, ugh, roll their eyes, right? Ugh, and then everything is fine, right? And so that might be part of it as well, right? We might see someone say something offensive, and then we look to the other character to see how they react. And if the other character doesn't freak out, if the woman character doesn't have a big response, then maybe we're like, oh, maybe it's okay, right? Maybe it's not such a. I thought that was a big deal, but maybe it's not, because Penny is not upset, right? What did she say? She when Howard knocked on her door and she said something about, you put a webcam in a teddy bear you gave me. Yeah, but she didn't seem too upset, right? She was just kind of like, ugh, right? Little eye roll. But if somebody snuck a webcam into your bedroom, would that upset you? I think it would upset me, right? I would be pretty upset about that, right? But she's kind of like, ugh, she doesn't seem to react. What else is going on? Why do we laugh at this stuff? The lamp shade. Did you catch that? Yeah. What is that? What is lampshading? Let me help you. So lampshading is where the writers of the show are letting the audience know that something kind of weird is going on, but the writers know it. Okay? So they kind of write a racist joke about Indian monopoly, right? It's just like regular monopoly, but you build call centers and it's in rupees, and if you pick a card you get dysentery, and Raj is like, that's racist, you know, right? But they don't really challenge the racism, right? The writers just point it out, right? That's racism. And then it's like they're off the hook, right? Because they're not writing racist jokes. They know it's racist. That's the joke, right? But like the author of this video essay says, they're not really pointing out anything wrong with racism. Nobody's saying, hey, don't say stuff like that. They're just saying, ha, that's racism. But that's not the same as a critique, right? It's just pointing it out, right? Anyone seen the second Deadpool movie? Yeah? Deadpool does this actually a number of times in the film because he talks to the audience, right? And so remember, hopefully this won't be a spoiler for people, but you know at the end when he's got that collar on and they have to find out the combination to get the collar off, and then Domino's like, oh, try 6, and then it pops off and Deadpool's like, well, that's just lazy writing. Right? And so yeah, that's lampshading, right? He's, you know, that's a pretty easy solution to a complicated problem, but he says, yeah, that's the writers are just being lazy there, right? That's, oh yeah, it worked. Whoops. So lampshading is going on, but the other thing is, again, they're always comparing the nerd to the alpha male, right? And when the alpha male says misogynistic or sexist things, it doesn't come across very well, right? Because these guys are kind of powerful enough and confident enough to actually do the behavior they're talking about, right? Whereas when these guys say it, when they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to the clubs and meet a bunch of women, lock up your daughters, you know, when they say it, it's like,
I know that.
they're harmless, right? They're not going to the club. They're not gonna pick up any women, right? We know that that's ridiculous, and we laugh it off, right? Because they don't seem capable of doing that sort of thing, right? But again, if they were all a bunch of like, you know, muscular bro type guys, it wouldn't really be funny, right? It'd be kind of like, ugh, I don't know if I like that, right? So they're able to get away with this because these guys seem harmless, right? But I'll ask you, right before I give you a break, is it really harmless? Right? Is this stuff, is the sexism, the misogyny, the stalking, the never taking no for an answer, in real life, is that harmless? It's not really, right? It's not, you know, these things are not harmless in real life. They're harmless here, right? Because we know it's a fantasy. We know it's not reality, right? And also, if you watch the show, you'll see that these guys aren't bad guys, right? They're nerdy, right? They say silly things and they do silly things sometimes, but they're nice guys, right? Like they all have a good heart. They don't intend to hurt people. They try not to hurt people. They're framed as good people, good guys. And so that kind of allows us to relax a little bit too, right? We know that, you know, Howard is a creepy pervert, right? And he is stalking women, but we also know that he is not a sex offender. He is not a criminal, right? We know that well, that's debatable, I guess, but we know he's not a bad guy, right? He's not going to hurt anyone because of how it's framed in the show. But again, in real life, we don't often know that, right? Especially if women encounter guys that they don't know very well, they don't know if they're harmless, right? They don't know if this misogyny and, you know, sexism and never taking no, they don't know if that's going to escalate to a crime, right? And so again, it's funny in the show, but in real life it's not funny, right? And in fact it's harmful. Hopefully none of you in this room have ever been stalked, but if you ever are, and I hope to God that you never are, but if you are, you'll realize that it's a very uncomfortable position to be in, even if the person who is stalking you is not that scary. It's it's awful, right? And so again, when we see it here in the Big Bang Theory, it's funny, right? Haha, he found the America's next top model house and showed up pretending to fix the cable. What a ridiculous plan, right? But in real life, that's not funny, right? That's criminal behavior, and makes women uncomfortable, right? And as it should. Okay, we've been working for a long time. Let's take a break, because when we come back, I have one more thing to show you, okay? Okay, so in The Big Bang Theory, we saw that, and again, I hope I didn't ruin this show for you, but there is a lot of sexism and misogyny, right? But we don't notice it, right? They get away with it because, again, it's a fantasy, right? It's not reality. Sitcoms are not meant to be reality. The sitcom frames these guys as good guys, right? We think that they wouldn't harm or hurt anyone. We see the female characters when the men behave badly. The female characters don't seem to react, right? They just kind of, guys, right? Am I right? Right? That's kind of all they do, right? But plus, the writers here use these kind of non-masculine, nerdy guys, and these guys can say this stuff without really being taken seriously, right? Because we just don't feel that they're harmful enough or masculine enough or dangerous enough to really do any of the things that they might say, right? So we know that Howard will stalk the top models, and we know that he might show up at their doorstep, but that's probably all he'll be able to do, right? Because we know he's not super confident, right? We know he's kind of nerdy and awkward, right? And finally, they use lampshading, right? They actually point out when something is particularly sexist or racist. The writers will kind of say, it's okay, people. We know this is a racist joke, or we know this is not great, right? And again, it allows the audience to be like, oh, okay, it's just a joke, right? They're not being serious. And so the writers of the show can use all of these things to kind of sell us sexism and sell us misogyny, but we don't get upset about it because it's kind of framed in humor, right? And it's presented by people who don't seem threatening, right? But again, people are absorbing these messages anyway, right? People are absorbing the stereotypes, the sexism, the misogyny, and it comes out in real life. And we saw that toward the end of the video where lots of women in the tech industry have reported sexual assault in lots of industries, but in the tech industry in specific, lots of women have reported sexual assaults, right? One guy from Google wrote a 10-page paper on, he didn't think that women should deserve, special attention in hiring because they just aren't as good at tech as men, apparently, right? And so, again, these ideas seem kind of funny and goofy on television, which they are, but then once they get absorbed by people and people start acting on them, in the real world it becomes pretty uncomfortable pretty quickly, right? And I want to take, the last thing I want to show you today is kind of another example of that, if you will allow me to. Anyone know who this guy is? No? Oh man, generation gap. This is Harrison Ford, as you can see. Very popular actor here in North America and worldwide. His movies have been incredibly popular throughout the 1980s and the 1990s, and most of his roles put him in the hero role. Okay, so you may have seen him in Star Wars as Han Solo. You may have seen him in Indiana Jones as Indiana Jones. He's been in lots of other things as well. He's been CIA agent Jack Ryan in Tom Clancy's movies. He's been, all kinds of popular movies. And because his movies have been so popular for so long, they act as a kind of an agent of socialization, right? Those movies are being seen by everyone, and maybe particularly by young men. And so young men are kind of learning masculinity. They're learning how to be a man from Harrison Ford's movies, or at least they were. And so the question, of course, is what kind of man is Harrison teaching them to be? Right? And so I wanted to look at one more video that talks about romance in Harrison Ford movies. And we'll see clips from 4 Harrison Ford movies, we'll see one from Star Wars, from Empire Strikes Back. We'll see clips from 2 Indiana Jones movies, and we'll see a clip from the original Blade Runner. So not the new one with Ryan Gosling, but the original one. And we'll see that his characters, not Harrison, Harrison's a sweet fellow, I'm sure, but his characters behave pretty badly toward women. And so I want to see this just to sort of shine a light on what's wrong here, okay? So again, if you're online, I'll put the video link in the live chat there. We'll watch this and then we will come back and talk, okay? So online people will see you in just a little bit. So that's all the time we have, obviously. Go have a great long weekend, get lots of sleep, enjoy yourself. I will see you on Tuesday, not on Monday, because Monday's a holiday. What's that? We should have a quiz next week. Do you want to do Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday? Thursday? Arena's like never.
Yeah.
Thursday it is. I can't do never, but I can do Thursday. So let's do Thursday. I'll put the stuff in Microsoft Teams for you to look at. David? Quiz.
What happens Thursday?
Quiz on Thursday. You got lots of time. Don't worry. How many?
Yeah.
We're supposed to have 5. This will be 3. Yep. Okay.